Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I have a guest come on and we get to learn a little bit more about their perspective on movies. So, my guest this week is one of my fellow SiftPop writers, Heath, who recently came on to Welcome to the Wasteland to talk about Dr. Strangelove. So, thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And this week, we're going to be learning a lot more about your perspective on movies, Heath. But before we get started, I'm going to let you shamelessly plug whatever you would like to shamelessly plug.
Yeah, sure. I'm not on much these days in terms of social sites or not many things to plug these days, but I do have a Letterboxd. If you're interested in just seeing a lot of different perspectives on film, you can go ahead and follow me there. I watch anywhere between 10 and 15 films a week on average. I review everything I watch, anywhere between 100 to 200 word reviews for some of the older things that you might have seen before. But if it's a older classic or an older film that I had a personal affinity for, or some of the newer modern releases, I can do more in-depth reviews, anywhere between 1,500 to maybe 2,000 words. And yeah, if that sounds of interest to you, great. Love to see you there. You can find me at Heath Lynch, or all one word, lowercase. You could search the one Heath bar and you'll be able to find me on Letterboxd.
I'm definitely a fan of reading your reviews, so those are definitely ones I like to check out while I'm on
Thank you.
Letterboxd. It's I'm glad I hopped onto that because I forget who
Oh yeah,
recommended that. I think it was Austin, one of the other writers from SiftPop, who first pointed that out to me. And it was funny because a friend of mine that I do my podcast with brought up to our group of that we have on our podcast, like,
sure.
have you guys ever like heard of this thing Letterbox? I'm like, been there, done that, Matt. But I'm glad to see him on there. It's always interesting to see, like, you just watch something like, what did some of my friends think of this movie?
Yeah, it's easily by far and away my favorite site as a movie lover. It's just fantastic, but it hits me on so many levels. I was doing so much of what Letterboxd lets me do before I even found Letterboxd, just keeping Excel spreadsheets where I would track every movie I saw in a given
Yeah.
year and rank them and all this stuff. And now it's like, oh, here's a website that does all that for you. And it keeps statistics. Like, my geeky, nerdy side absolutely loves it. And be like, oh, I had no idea I saw this many movies directed by this person. Or, of course, Samuel L. Jackson is my most viewed actor. He's in everything, like,
I have a funny story about 2020.
yeah,
So originally when I got on Letterbox, I just rated all my favorite movies. So like
yeah,
my little bar graph is a little skewed. But ever since I just put in the new movies that I watch. So
sure.
like I have all the movies I watch, and like in 2020, when it gives you those statistics, I must have watched a lot of documentaries about like modern society because it's like most watched actor, Donald Trump.
Oh God.
And I'm like, um, I think I need to stop watching political documentaries.
You've watched Home Alone 2 way too many times.
I've recorded it like 20 times in here.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing, and I like that. And I
Yeah.
teach statistics, so I'm always all about that.
Yep.
But jumping into things, I always like to start with what might seem like the most common question movie fans get asked, and maybe the one that they least like to answer. But what's your favorite film, Heath?
That's a question I actually love answering because I love talking about my favorite movie. It actually shocks me when people don't like that. I'm like, come on, it's your time to shine. You talk about your favorite things. For me, it's Saving Private Ryan. It always has been. I doubt anything will ever dethrone it. It probably always will be my favorite film. Uh, Everything about that film, I think, is perfect, or as close to perfect as any film can get, at least from my perspective. I don't think I could ever talk enough about it, but for the sake of not spending 3 hours talking about one film, I won't really do that, especially because it's been around. It's a classic now at this point. It's been around for over 20 years, going
Yeah.
on almost 25 years. Uh, it's considered, rightfully so, arguably the greatest war film ever
Mhm.
made. The opening scene with on the beach of Normandy is one of, if not the greatest segment, an act of film ever filmed. Period. It was so visceral that it was known for, people would walk out of the theater, especially World War II vets at the time, because like war films had never done this before. It was never, no, this is real. It was kind of a hyper stylized version of real. And this was so grounded in reality that it brought out people's PTSD and shell shocked reactions. And people had to walk out of the theater because of it. That's how intense it was. And that's not even getting into the actual relationships of the characters. Beyond that, the in-depth development that we have to this entire ensemble of characters. You feel like you know every single one of them intrinsically, like way more than any other movie would ever have the right to invest time into, especially because you know most of these people will die. And it also just has a lot of interesting theme work, just in particular about the exchanges we make through life. Is this worth that? Is saving one man worth risking an entire squad of people? Is the main exchange. But they're all through that, even down to when the medic discusses, you know, I used to go to sleep every night and ignore my mom on those rare nights where she was home. Why did I do that? You know, that's the little exchanges he made. He sacrificed potentially time with his mother for a reason he doesn't even know. And just the whole movie is littered with this idea of, is it worth what we do in exchange for what we give up? And for that to be discussed in a war film of this nature is just so powerful. And I love it. It's just a beautiful, perfect film.
Earn this.
Yeah, right.
So a couple of thoughts. So my grandfather fought in World War II. And I remember growing up watching things like The Great Escape with him and Patton, The Longest Day. He would not watch Saving Private Ryan. And it's just like too real. He was there. So he's just like, nope, not going to watch this. Because like you watch something like The Longest Day, it's very Hollywood kind of thing. And like you got John Wayne. And not this movie.
I think people had a real shock to the system, pun not intended for shell shock, but when they go to D-Day and they're showing people on the boat, and one guy's praying, the other guy throws up. You're like, oh, that's a little intense, but like, sure. But the moment that door goes down, and you just see instantly, within a second, like 6 bodies just drop dead. It's over. They're done. You're just like, oh my God. It was nothing we'd ever seen before. Frankly, I don't think any war film has topped it since. And yeah, it's just that level of, no, this is what happened. That, like you said, my grandfather fought in the war as well. And people can't watch this. It's really tough. Or if they can, maybe they watch it once and they're like, okay, I understand it. I watched it once for the appreciation level, and I'm never seeing it again. You know,
it's just like, goodbye.
Yep.
And it's interesting because like this is Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
It's just like up to this, like obviously, and anybody tries to argue his talents of being able to do so many different kinds of films. It's ridiculous. And
he can do anything.
Do anything except for maybe like straight up comedies. That might be the only thing.
And it's weird because I don't know if he's ever really even tried that. I bet you he could do it if he really wanted to, but I just don't think he's interested in it.
1941, like early on in his career, is something that didn't really hit so well. Mm-hmm. And there's very few films that I've watched that Spielberg's made that I didn't like The Terminal. I saw that when I was like a kid. My aunt dragged me to that, and I'm just like, I don't know if I would enjoy it better when I'm an adult watching it, but when I was like, I don't know, 13, when that came out, I'm like, nope, not about this. I wanted to see Shrek 2.
Well, I love The Terminal. I think you should give it a rewatch. I remember that came out when I was in college, and I really, really liked it. And I think it still hits well, especially even more maybe so nowadays with it came out in a post 9/11 era, and the idea of how we feel about immigrants and people that are foreigners and how we treat them. And it has an interesting context even to today.
I have to add it to my watch list.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to bring up Shakespeare in Love, would that be triggering?
Don't. It's so incredibly triggering. So I love the Oscars. I watch it every year. It's actually a big deal with my family. Like it's a pseudo holiday for us. We bet on all the categories. We put money in a pool. I'm way worse than anyone else in the family, but we research them. And we've been doing this. It's a family tradition. Like we all get together. We spend the whole night together, and it's a lot of fun. And we've probably been doing that for over 20 years, maybe right after Saving Private Ryan, I think is when we officially started. But yeah, it just blows my mind. And the thing is, I always want to stress, I want everyone to enjoy a movie. I never want to like someone to hate a movie. And same goes for myself. I never want to dislike a movie either. And, I think another good example of that is like The Social Network. Like, I like The King's Speech. King's Speech is great. The Social Network is just way better of a film. And this was the worst offensive year of that, at least to me. There's nothing wrong with Shakespeare in Love, but it's not Saving Private Ryan. And I think it's a combination of, we just gave Stephen the big nod a few years prior for another World War II film, granted, looking at an entirely different aspect of it, looking at the actual Holocaust aspect of it with Schindler's List, but still a World War II era film nonetheless, and talking about the war. And also, that wasn't even the only World War II film that year. You had Terrence Malick doing The Thin Red Line, and frankly, I think that kind of split the vote a little bit. You have two, not that Saving Private Ryan and Thin Red Line have any kind of tone similarities to them. They are entirely different films, but still World War II films nonetheless. And I think that might have, those two things, Spielberg just got his, and there's another World War II film that split the vote a bit, and this Shakespeare in Love just kind of slips in there. That and trigger warning, the W man. The W man. He was notorious for his campaigning, and
King's
and King's Speech is also that, and so that Shakespeare was one of his babies, and he wanted it to win, and like many of his films, he got his way.
Yep. And it's funny because I have that film too, where it's like, so the film that won Best Picture is a better film than Shakespeare in Love. But back in 2015, when Fury Road didn't win Best Picture over Spotlight, and I get irrationally mad when people bring up Spotlight just because of that.
Well, I hate to break it to you, Shade. My favorite film ever is Saving Private Ryan. My second favorite film ever is Spotlight.
Well, it's funny because my second favorite film of all time is Mad Max Fury Road. So.
Well, Mad Max I can actually check my list. Mad Max is my number 17. So I'm still like right there with you. I absolutely love it. But I think it was also, at least for me, a lot of my family is a big part of the Catholic Church. And so the story of Spotlight was just deeply impactful to me, my family, a lot of relatives and people I know. And it's just shot and filmed so well. It's acted so beautifully that I just love it. But
not enough of us have lived
it doesn't
not enough of us have lived the leather-clad post-apocalyptic life. For Mad Max Fury Road to hit on a personal level.
But man, if you ever want a shot of adrenaline, Fury Road is the perfect shot of adrenaline. That's great.
It was
that was a good year though. There was a lot of good films that year.
It was like even The Revenant, and I'm like, that was a tough one. At least Mad Max went home with like 6 Oscars.
Yeah, I think they're
just like, let me take all these technical ones. Thank you.
I would actually say that they were the winner of the night. They came out with so much gold that I don't think a lot of people expected. And yeah, you had The Revenant that year. I think The Big Short was that year. The Martian. Like there was a lot of great films that year.
Yeah, the best comedy of 2015, The Martian, according to the Golden Globes.
According to the Golden Globes, yes. The disclaimer.
Now, Heath, what's your earliest memory going to the movies?
So I notoriously, amongst my family and friends, have an awful memory. My wife makes fun of me all the time. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. I have a weird thing where I can remember statistics of baseball players, and I can remember who won what Academy Award, like stat stuff, like stuff that you could learn in a book, like in a history book. Oh, the World War II was from, like things like that. But like actual memories, my memories, forget it. I have like 3 memories from elementary school tops, and I'm not even joking, like in all sincerity. So it's very hard for me. But I can say I did a little research on this. So I'll give you my first memory, but
Okay.
then I asked my parents, what's my actual first movie experience? I'll give you both. My first memory is with Batman Forever.
Okay.
And at this point, I'm already almost 10. Like that's how bad my memory is when that film came out. I was either 9 or 10. And I actually remember more going to McDonald's to try to collect the glass collector's cups that
Yes.
had the Riddler and Two-Face, Robin, and Batman like engraved in glass than I actually remember the movie. But I do remember going to the movie. I remember the boiling acid scene in the safe vault at the very beginning with Two-Face. I remember him driving a helicopter with a steering wheel and thinking that was weird. And I remember just the zany antics of Jim Carrey and just laughing and thought it was funny. Again, I'm like 10.
Yeah.
Even still, I have a little bit of nostalgic love for that film. And whenever I hear Seal Kiss from a Rose, I smile. But so that's my first memory of film in a theater, or first memory of film period, is probably something like watching at home a Disney VHS of like that of Peter Pan, or a VHS copy of like The Land Before Time, because dinosaurs are amazing. My first actual theater or film experience, though, I asked my mom, and it was seeing another Disney film. It was seeing Bambi. Bambi, Disney loved, especially while they were going through the dark ages, to re-release films.
Yeah.
And I was born in '86, and that's still right at the tail end of the dark ages before Little Mermaid came out, and they had the Renaissance era. And in 1988, they re-released Bambi in theaters. And my mom took me to see Bambi, and she told me 2 stories. One, that I was too small and didn't weigh enough to hold down the seat. So when I sat in the seat, here's the seat, and I tried to sit on it, my weight couldn't hold it down. So it shot back up in stadium seating mode, and I slid down and got stuck and wedged between the back of this chair and the actual seat cushion itself. Which is really funny. My mom had to unstick me from the movie theater chair and had to physically hold down my chair the rest of the movie so that I could enjoy the movie. And not even that I enjoyed the movie that long, because there's kind of a thing that makes people sad in Bambi. And a little 2-year-old, I couldn't handle it. So when Bambi's mom was shot by the hunter, I was a big mess, apparently crying in the movie theater, and my mom had to take me out. So that's my first actual movie theater experience. I don't remember any of that, but I find it absolutely hilarious nonetheless.
Oh my. And it's so funny because I remember when all the movie theaters had seats like that.
Yeah.
Not all of them do anymore. And well, so many of them have like the reclining seats, and just like basically like you're sleeping on a bed trying to watch a movie.
Yeah.
But
it's actually dangerous. There's been many times I've almost fallen asleep because I'm like, oh, I'm too comfortable.
Oh, I do not recline.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of
I don't anymore. I can't.
Nope. It's like I'm the kind of person that like hits my pillow. I'm out in like a couple minutes. I'm just like done.
Yeah.
Can't do that, especially at night. Really can't do that. But it's so interesting because it's like I don't have a whole lot of memories as like a kid, like a really small kid. And honestly, my first movie that I actually remember the experience of watching in the theater, like clearly, is when I was like 10.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing Fellowship of the Ring and Shrek when I was 10 years old. But like apparently my first movie was Indian in the Cupboard.
Oh, okay.
And also Space Jam, which Space Jam, I was like 5th row. And I was like 5, if that. So sit in the front, close to the front, not a huge fan.
Yeah. But I know that I do remember in the sense of remembering that I went to the theater for other movies. Like I remember that I went for The Lion King and Aladdin, but I don't remember the experience at all.
Yeah.
The first experience I remember, it's probably, like I said, Batman Forever. And then I think that's 95. The only other one, and I don't remember what year it was, but I also remember seeing Muppet Treasure Island in movie theaters. And that might have been 96 or something like that. I could look it up. But I do remember that one as well. And yeah, those have to be my earliest.
Yeah, I have Muppet Treasure Island somewhere like right around there.
1996. Yep.
It was funny because I was thinking about that earlier because I was listening to the podcast, this week's podcast, SiftPop Writers Room, and they were talking about the Disney Three Musketeers from the early 90s. And they were talking about Tim Curry, and I'm like, oh, Long John Silver from Muppet Treasure Island. Oh,
Yep.
man. Now, Heath, do you have a particular favorite genre of movies?
I do. I actually had to think about this one because I'll watch virtually anything.
Mhm.
But if I had to pick a favorite genre, and I quantified it more in terms of like rewatchability, like what are the movies I want to go back, even if I know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
I can rewatch them a lot, and that's probably murder mysteries. I love a good murder mystery. I love a good thriller in that regard. Any kind of murder mystery where, again, especially a movie like that where they're usually twisted, or there's a lot of turns to them. Sometimes there's surprises in the narrative. And even the biggest one is usually who killed the whatever, and even with that, I still love murder mysteries. The first time, it's always a great experience trying to figure out the murder mystery aspect of it itself. You get to play detective as you're watching it. But those are definitely my favorite things, like Zodiac, LA Confidential, Knives Out, most recently, The Nice Guys, Seven, Hot Fuzz, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Chinatown, The Fugitive. I mean, I could just keep going on. All of these movies, I love them. I absolutely love thrillers and murder mysteries.
Oh, and they're all great. Like,
Yeah.
I could have so many things to say about every single one of them.
Yeah.
And who's ready for $400 million worth of two new Knives Out movies coming to Netflix?
Me, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Oh, such craziness going on in Hollywood when like Ryan Johnson and Daniel Craig are handed $100 million a piece. It's like, Netflix, we would like two new Knives Out movies. Here's all the money.
My only, and now granted there's a pandemic, so I understand that, but still, like, Knives Out really came out right before the pandemic started. It shocks me that they were able to turn it around. So I mean, they're already filming Knives Out too. Like, I would think if you want a story of that nature, that it would take you some time to bang out a script that's like worthy of being a Knives Out type script, like that delivers on the level that the first film did.
Yeah.
And
so
again, with the pandemic, maybe he just had more time. Ryan's at home; he has nothing else to do. So sure, I'll spend 8 hours a day, literally, for a month, and I'll just make the perfect script. But man, it felt quick. But at the same time, I'm excited. I'm going to watch it the day it comes out. I already know that. I'm super stoked.
So Batista already talking about how it's better than the first one.
Yeah, I saw that quote as well.
Yeah, I'm just like, alrighty, bring it to Netflix. Because it's like that deal. What Paramount just spent $400 million on like Exorcist sequels.
I didn't see that one. That's a chunk of change.
And it's from I think it's from the same director as like the Halloween reboot.
Oh wow, okay.
And I'm like, well, here you go. Keep making long-awaited sequels to horror classics. Yeah. And
it's gonna be really interesting to me. I think the biggest move in the industry is Amazon buying MGM Studios.
Yep.
And what that means for a lot of films, if Amazon wants to revive things, reboot things, or just make sequels, or just now that they have their own studio, if they want to make new original product. But for me, I'm curious on how that's going to impact James Bond.
Yep.
James Bond is my favorite franchise of all time until Marvel decided, hey, we're going to put out like 3 to 4 movies every year. Like, James Bond was the gold standard for the longest franchise in Hollywood history. And frankly, until Marvel started doing this, I never thought it would be topped. I mean, No Time to Die comes out. It was supposed to be out last year. Pandemic, it's out this year. But that's 25 films. Like, been going since 1962. I never thought anyone would catch them. But now that's been passed.
Yeah, and it's
But
like
still, I wonder what Amazon's going to do. That they have all the money in the world. If are they going to start doing that? Do they churn out a Bond film every 2 years like they used to do? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
I don't know. It's going to wind up being 6 years since Spectre came out. It's just like, oh yeah. And then Paramount just dropped $900 million today on South Park.
I saw that for 14 films. 14 films and like 3 or 4 more seasons.
Through season 30.
And the first film is already going to come out this year. They already said it has to come out this year. Trey Parker and Matt Stone are like magicians with the amount of work they do, and they're so talented, and everything is still funny all the time. It's like they never run out of ideas, and I don't know how when they're doing everything. They feel like they work more than anyone.
The quarantine special and the vaccine special were two of my favorite things to come out of
ever.
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh man. Now, Heath, do you have a particular favorite filmmaker?
Yes. This might get derided as his name is not as popular as it used to be, say 4 or 5 years ago. But I love Christopher Nolan. Mm-hmm. I recognize that he has shortcomings. He is not perfect. I'm not saying that he is. But holy crap, do I not anticipate and get excited for every single one of his films. I'm sorry, there's not another director that does that to me. Like, there are other directors that I follow, and I'm super excited when they have new work coming out.
Yeah.
But there are no other directors where I'm like, I have to see their movie. I have to see it opening weekend, if not opening night, because if I don't, it might be spoiled. And that would ruin the whole experience, because Nolan's films are mind-bending cluster Fs that you can't comprehend. Like, I hate when I see people online like, oh, it was so predictable. No, you're so full of it. No one's ever actually predicted a Nolan film. Don't tell me that you did. I don't believe you. I categorically think you're lying. Don't tell me that you saw everything that happened in Interstellar, being sucked into a black hole and reaching the 4th dimension, using gravity. Yeah, don't tell me that you anticipated everything in Inception. Don't tell me that you followed Memento and knew where that was going to go. You're lying. You're so full of it. But it's because of films like that even when like Tenet comes out and his characters are underdeveloped, especially once again, he doesn't write female characters that well, and you have problems with your sound design. Like, it doesn't even bother me as much as it bothers some other people, but it's still there, and you have to acknowledge it. I still had a blast. I'm like, we're running backwards through time. This is awesome. This is so fun and so original. And I will never slam him to the degree that some people love to when someone's going to put themselves out there and risk to always be original and deliver something new, when that's something so rare that we see in film these days, let alone with these big $100 million, multi-$100 million blockbusters.
Well, and like, when I sit in a theater and all of a sudden Syncope comes up before a trailer, and I know I'm about to watch a Christopher Nolan trailer because I know what that is. And I remember when that popped up and that Tenet trailer played for the first time in the theater, I'm just like, I can't wait.
Speaking of that, real quick to interject, the art of a trailer, too many studios these days give away way too much, and credit to Nolan, he still doesn't. When I remember the Tenet trailer too, I saw that, I was like, I don't know what I just saw. I don't know what this movie's about, but damn it if I'm not seeing it immediately when I can.
Well, I guess Warner Brothers is probably one of the ones that does it the least, because they were also the ones that made the Blade Runner 2049 trailer, and nobody knew what the hell that movie was, and nobody went to go see it except for all of us cinephiles who are just like, yes,
Blade Runner.
And the fact that Nolan might be going to Netflix,
I don't think he's going to. He cares way too much about theaters, and we'll see.
I thought that, like, if he winds up going to Netflix after all that, I would be shocked.
I would be shocked. He threw such a fit. I just don't see it happening. But yeah, who knows?
I'm a huge Nolan fan too.
Yeah.
And one of my fondest memories of watching a movie for the first time was watching The Prestige for the first time
Oh,
and just having my mind blown because I'm like, what did I just watch?
sure.
And seeing Interstellar for the first time in a theater. And the only Batman one that I saw in a theater was The Dark Knight Rises.
Hmm.
And, but like, even that, watching that for the first time in a theater, it's just that scale and epicness. And if you talk to Christopher Nolan, he doesn't have a sound mixing problem.
Yeah,
It's just,
he likes it. Yep.
it's a bold, revolutionary way of sound mixing. And everybody else is just like, sure, guy.
Yeah, everyone else
But
is wrong. It's mentioned. It's funny that you mentioned the Prestige because I absolutely love that one as well. But it's interesting because on the grand scale, that was like kind of his coming out film. Because before that, you had Memento,
Mhm.
which was critically lauded, but it was still small. It was
Yep.
indie. And after that, you had Insomnia, and that wasn't as lauded, but still received well. And it had Pacino and Robin Williams. That was good, but still not like a smash success. But then you did Batman Begins, and that
Mhm.
was huge. And I've seen every single one of his movies in theaters since then. But I remember distinctly the vibe around it was this movie's amazing, but that was kind of a lot of people seeing Nolan for the first time, but they weren't going for Nolan, they were going for Batman. So then when the
Yeah.
Prestige came out and they're like the guy who made Batman Begins, a lot of people went to see it now based on that, and that's when they're like, holy crap, this guy can deliver aces even when it has nothing to do with our favorite superhero. It has nothing to do with Batman. The Prestige is even better than Batman Begins, and it's been since then that he's pretty much just gripped the movie industry world, and people are like, yeah, he is must see movie making. Like, we have to see his pictures.
There are very few directors that can do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody at his scale can do
Yeah.
that. Because it isn't like The Irishman made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, people didn't go flocking
Yeah.
to see Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
And like,
And I would even go ahead.
and like I was gonna say, like, Tarantino would be ecstatic if his movies made half the money
that Nolan made,
that a Christopher Nolan movie makes.
Yeah.
And it's not like an IP like Marvel and like Joker and DC and all these things that make all that money. That's Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
Nolan's selling that. Who else would make a very minimalist war film without fleshed out, interesting, like big personality characters, and with a cast besides Tom Hardy, who you barely see his face anyway, and that makes what, like $700 million worldwide?
Yeah. It's just whether people want to admit it or not. And again, I know that he has his detractors, especially lately after Tenet.
Mm-hmm.
But he is one of the icons of our time, and he will be remembered as one of the best directors in this era. Whether that continues, who knows if he does start to really stumble after Tenet? I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but I can categorically say from 2000, Memento, to I would include Tenet, so we'll just do 2020. But even if you don't want to, Dunkirk 2017. So roughly 20 years there. He is one of the defining directors of the time, and his work has to be noticed.
Yeah. It's something special.
Yeah.
And we don't get enough of that anymore.
Yeah.
Now, Heath, do you have a particular favorite actor, actress?
This is actually something I don't have. I talked earlier about how I love to talk about my favorite movie.
Yeah.
But I don't have a favorite actor. I care way more about like the idea of the film, what it's about, what the narrative structure is going to be. When I see a trailer or I hear about a film coming out, or I put a lot more weight into the director. Like if I see a Christopher Nolan, or if it's Greta Gerwig's doing something, or Martin Scorsese, like now I'm really interested. I will see a film regardless of the talent that's in it. Now, if there are big names, that's of course intriguing. I'm not saying it's not, but like I think there's so much more to filmmaking and acting than just the actors. It's
Mhm.
the script that they're handed, it's the director they're working with. There's so much to it. So I have a hard time coming up with my favorite actors, but I would say like I do tend to always look for new people to like. And what I mean by that is like if you had asked me 15 years ago, I probably would have said like Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt
Mhm.
Damon coming out of like The Departed, like right around that time. They're in their height, and I'm really enjoying that. That's probably something I would have done. It not that they're not still making great work, of course they are, but like I'm always looking for someone new. So like lately in the past few years, I've really enjoyed Saoirse Ronan.
Yep.
I think she is incredible in literally everything she does. I think it's ridiculous that she doesn't have an Oscar yet. I think she is due, and I think she'll get one hopefully soon. Um, I also really love Michael B. Jordan. I
Mhm.
think he's fantastic in everything that he's been doing. Fruitvale Station is stunning and powerful. Even in Creed, which is just it's another boxing movie. We've had boxing movies for decades, and we've had boxing movies within that one franchise for decades. And you know what? He still knocks it out of the park. One of my favorites lately is probably Florence Pugh,
Mm.
especially in the last like year and a half. What she's done to 2 years from most recently with Black Widow. But then I loved Fighting with Your Family. I
Yeah.
loved that she did such a unique job in Midsommar. And there's another big one that she did.
Little
Oh, Little
Women.
Women with
Yep.
Saoirse Ronan. She was fantastic in. And then the other one that I really been enjoying lately is Paul Dano.
Mm.
I think Paul Dano is incredibly underrated. He doesn't seem to do much in terms of work. He's not like a film machine. He only comes out with one movie a year, maybe even once every other year. But like everything he's in, I'm just like, holy crap, you can just act your ass off. You're so good, from Swiss Army Man to even small parts in like 12 Years a Slave, or then bigger roles like There Will Be Blood. I am
Yep.
super stoked for the Batman next
Yep.
year, and he's going to be the Riddler. Oh my God, that's just so enticing to me. So those are probably the four that I've been following a lot lately and really enjoy.
There's Saoirse Ronan is my favorite actress working
Yeah,
today, and
she's incredible.
love everything that she's in, and even things like she was in Atonement, right? When she was
Yes,
like
that was actually I think her first role. She was the little
that,
girl in Atonement.
the Lovely Bones, and like even stuff like that, and then bam, she's like with Lady Bird and Little Women, Brooklyn. I adore the movie
Mhm.
Brooklyn so much, and that was also 2015. That was such a great year. Like,
Yes, it was. That was a really good year.
yeah. Well, I didn't mention this earlier, but I have an Oscar party every year.
Oh, cool.
And like
Same.
that's my favorite. Like that was my first thing I did. Like slowly coming back from quarantining from people
Mhm.
was I had my two best friends, Matt and Alex, who I do my podcast with, to come over for an Oscar party of 4 people.
Yeah.
So, and
That's
oh,
good.
was that an awkward night this year?
Oh man. I was I get what Steven Soderbergh was doing. He was in the director's chair, for those who don't know,
Yep.
directing the production of the Oscars, and I get it. There's a lot of people that wanted Chadwick to win Best Actor, and it would have been a big moment. But sometimes you swing for the fences and you swing and you miss. And you know what? If anything ever proved that the Oscars aren't rigged or that we don't know what's coming, this proved it, because that was the worst ending I've ever seen to an Oscars. That I knew something was weird when they didn't do Best Picture last. We still had Best Actress, Best Actor to go. I was like, "What? This isn't right. Don't do this." And then yeah, it, it, all right, yeah, it's not Michael B. Jordan. We're giving it to Anthony Hopkins. He's not here. Bye. I'm walking off and cut. Like,
So
I
they
hate
should never end the show not on Best Picture.
Best Picture should always be the end.
Like,
Absolutely.
I don't care who you hope to win any other
Yeah.
awards. Nothing's bigger than Best Picture.
I
Because
will say after this, they're never making that mistake again. There's
no,
no way. And it comes down to two things. One, like you said, nothing's more important than Best Picture. That's what we all want to see more than anything, even more than the actors and the director. We want to see Best Picture. That is the title card, so to speak. So you should save that to the end. But two, and most importantly, and I saw someone mention this somewhere else, I forget who, so I can't credit them, but I agree. Someone will always be there for Best Picture. If it's going to Best Actor or Actress or Director, they might not be there in person. Someone else might have to accept on their behalf, or there might not even be someone there to accept on their behalf, and you have to do what happened this time, and you just kind of skip over it. But unfortunately, there was no one to skip to. That just ended the production. But if you do it for Best Picture, there's always going to be someone there, whether it's the director, the screenwriter, some of the actors, the producers. There will always be someone there to accept the award and give a speech and end the show on a good note. And just such a mess up, and they'll never do it again.
Well, and I felt bad for Joaquin Phoenix because what a horrible position they put him in.
Yeah. He hates that stuff.
Well, first off, he's not exactly the most socially comfortable human being. And then you throw him in that situation.
Yeah.
And my number one film of 2021 so far is The Father. Like, that movie wrecked me. And Anthony Hopkins is amazing. And he earned it. It's just
he did.
Not what people were hoping for, or apparently they were banking on.
Yeah.
And they would. So, like, first off, he's in Wales. He's an old man.
Mm-hmm.
And a pandemic was still going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, what, 4 o'clock in the morning in Wales?
Yeah, something like that.
So, like, because he didn't even show up when he was nominated for 2 Popes the year before.
No.
So, like, he's an old man. And
I think he's kind of resigned himself to, like, I'm done. You guys don't need to award me. I've done it. Give it to someone else. Like, I actually feel that way with him, where he's just like, you guys stop. Just, like, I'm gonna die soon. Like, I'm kind of out. Like, I'm a borderline retiring. Just, like, let other people have the fun. And not that he's not grateful. I know he's grateful, but, like, that's just the vibe I got with his acceptance speech when he was on camera. And as he's talked about it after the fact, he's like, you guys, why'd you do this?
Well, and it was interesting because the year before when he was nominated with Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, and, like, the young people were Tom Hanks and Brad Pitt.
I know.
So it's just like
hanging on to the old guard real good.
Well, and it's the best supporting actor category, so interesting every year. And
well, especially when you have Judas and the Black Messiah, and your lead is also apparently supporting. So
I'm pretty sure they acknowledge that Jesse Plemons then was the lead in Judas and the Black Messiah.
Oh man, talk about category fraud, Jesus.
I legitimately, when I was listening to them read the nominees that morning, thought they messed up.
I did too, actually.
Like, I legitimately thought they messed up, but nope, no, they didn't.
And here's the thing, in my mind, Lakeith Stanfield is good enough to be nominated for Best Actor, and that's what they campaigned him for. I don't know. I'm not part of it's whatever, but it just blows my mind when they do stuff like that.
It's like, you could have nominated them both for Best Actor. At least that would have made more sense.
Yep.
But you didn't.
No.
So what's going on here? Now, Heath, what's a film that you literally could watch every day?
So it's hard. Again, this is one of those questions where you want to be able to engage in, like, everything. If I could watch something every day, I want it to be something that's kind of all encompassing, gives me a little bit of every genre so that I'm getting all those flavors. And I think the closest one that I could do that is The Goonies. So when I was younger, I used to be a summer camp counselor, and my nickname was Goonie. And I always loved this film. I love its messaging. I love the idea of you can always have an adventure. It doesn't matter what part of your life you're at or what complications or struggles you're coming up to. But it's also just this, it's the ultimate kid adventure film. And that anything can happen. You can just have fun. And it just, I even almost did this once when I first got the film on DVD. I went back and watched a lot of the special features that I'd never seen before, DVD commentary with the whole cast, and Richard Donner, may he rest in peace. So I when I first got that DVD, I watched that movie every day for 2.5 weeks straight. So I know I could do it with that movie because that's the closest I've ever actually gotten to answering that question. In real life, I actually almost watched that every day for like a month. There are other movies that I absolutely love that I repeatedly watch a lot, but The Goonies is probably like the movie that, yeah, it's a little bit of action, it's a little bit of adventure, there's comedy, there's mischief, there's romance, although not developed well at all, but it's there. And there's some real organic teamwork too, and the acting, even for the kids, but like especially for the Patelli family, I love them, and it's so quirky and fun that I love that movie. I can watch it every
You have a little mob movie sprinkled in too.
day. Yeah, exactly. I got a little bit of
Italian people.
Yeah.
I've watched The Goonies so many times in my life, and a lot of respect to Richard Donner, because I had recently done that. I've done that director's tournament on my Instagram story to pick my next director for Welcome to the Wasteland, which will be Martin Scorsese, which I'll be spending 40 weeks going through all of his movies. I'm going to be watching Scorsese until June.
Well,
so
I'm here to help. I love some of those movies, but yeah, you've got a task ahead of you. For sure.
I'm going to be posting in Slack soon about that specifically, but Richard Donner put up a good fight in that tournament. He actually did pretty well for himself. I'm like, good for you. And because he had such range, because like he directed The Exorcist, not The Exorcist, The Omen, Superman, The Goonies, all 4 Lethal Weapon movies. I'm just like, look at Richard Donner here.
Probably most known for the Lethal Weapons, but yeah, he did a lot of crazy things that you wouldn't necessarily think you would attribute to him.
And long before we had this Snyder cut or Air cut,
Superman 2,
the Donner
cut,
which is the only one that I own. So
it's the only one that anyone should own.
Yeah, and shouldn't own anything after.
Yes.
3 in A Quest for Peace. No, just no.
I always found it funny that when DC tried to restart their films in the 2000s, they were successful with Batman, doing Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises. But most people forget, and Batman Begins came out in 2005. In 2006, they tried to restart Superman. They did Superman Returns with Brandon Routh as the lead, which I actually thought he looked the part tremendously.
Yes, he did.
The acting, maybe not all there, but he looked the part tremendously. And if you remember, that takes place in that timeline. It takes place after Superman 2. That's how Warner Brothers felt about it. They're like, we don't agree that Superman 3 and Superman 4 exist either. We're just going to say they don't. And you go Superman 1, 2, and Returns. And then, again, that movie didn't do well, so that was the end of that.
It's like, let's be clear here. Richard Pryor and Nuclear Man did not exist. Just gone. Goodbye. Now, Heath, what's a film that you feel like you connect to because it relates to another interest of yours?
So this would be 3 films. I'm going to give you one in particular, but they all have the same corresponding link, which is baseball. I mentioned earlier, I can remember baseball stats. All of this is derivative from my relationship with my father. I absolutely love baseball. It's a great big part of my life. Sports in general, I'm also a really big hockey guy, but baseball's really special and important to me. And so those films would be Moneyball, A League of Their Own, and in particular, Field of Dreams. All 3 of those movies, again, talking about movies I could watch over and over. I could literally watch any of those 3 movies over and over and never get tired of them. I've probably seen each of them at least 20 times, some of them maybe more. And Field of Dreams in particular, because of the relationship I've had with my father, and that is about a father-son dynamic within the confines of baseball and how that affects relationships, and how baseball is a romantic sport that can be meant to represent so much. Even when James Earl Jones gives his speech at the end of the film about what baseball is to America, I still cry. and get welled up when I watch that. And that's before you even get to 10 minutes later, the father-son catch scene, at which point I lose it every time I watch the movie. I literally can't control myself. It's a powerful film, even down to the movie has this road trip where they go to Fenway Park.
Yeah.
My dad and I are trying to do that. We are trying to see every baseball stadium. I'm up to like 15
Awesome.
now. In fact, just last week we were on vacation and we went and saw a Tampa Bay Devil Rays game in their trash heap of a stadium.
Tropicana Field is trash.
It is awful. I hope that the team and the city can come to an agreement and they can find a way to keep the team there and in a new stadium, because that place is terrible. But I don't
first place, and like
they're a great team and they have fans that want to support them, but most people don't realize the stadium is like 30 minutes away from actual Tampa. It's in St. Petersburg, across a bridge that's one way, like difficult to get it. Anyway, but yeah, Field of Dreams is a very powerful and moving film. It was nominated for Best Picture for a reason. I think even some people forget that, but it was very beloved and heartwarming, and it still gets to me. And again, it's baseball in general, though. Moneyball gets to me. I love A League of Their Own. I think that is so powerful. I watched that probably more than even the other two, just because of everything that film represents, and giving empowerment to women. I think is so positive, and the world needs more of it. But yeah, those three, and just the theme of baseball in general.
Oh, and I recently rewatched Field of Dreams, and it's interesting. I watched that a lot as a kid, and just the love of baseball hit so close. And as an adult who reviews films and watching the film and realizing how amazing the acting is, and even just like Burt Lancaster and his Moonlight Graham. There's something special about that man. And then of course James Earl Jones, just presence, just off the charts.
Everything he does is perfect.
And A League of Their Own, the whole cast, the ensemble, all the women in it, and then even all the even John Lovitz.
He's great. He's in the movie maybe for I think 8 minutes in total screen time.
Yep.
And he's one of the most memorable characters in the film. It's just, that's how powerful
and
that movie was. It left such an impact.
Hanks.
I used to, as a kid, I probably can't do it now, nor am I going to attempt on this video, but I used to have the no crying in baseball speech, rant, whatever you want to call it, memorized verbatim, word for word. It was so funny. Oh man, he's so great.
For me, honestly, the baseball movie that I've probably watched the most is Major League, because
that's up there for me too.
Laugh so much watching that movie, and two, it really captures so much about baseball, from
oh, for sure,
business standpoint, and then from a player standpoint, because the three other films that you brought up, probably A League of Their Own is the only one where it's you're really in it, the games with the players, because obviously Moneyball's about
the front office, and Field of Dreams is about the emotion of baseball and how it impacts people.
But just watching the Cleveland Indians try to come back and win that, make the playoff.
Cleveland Guardians now.
Cleveland Guardians. They should still have some Randy Newman music though.
Oh, absolutely.
But just the characters in that movie. But I have to ask, Heath, who's your team?
So I'm St. Louis born and bred.
Okay.
I'm wearing my St. Louis Battlehawks shirt right now from the XFL.
Yeah.
Because the NFL stole our football team twice. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals diehard fan. I absolutely love the Redbirds. I was actually at the World Series last time we won in 2011. I have great fond memories of being to many games with my family, friends, my father in particular. Diehard Cardinals fan. Things aren't the best right now. Well, that's okay. They'll figure it out. I have confidence. Maybe not this year, but in the future. But So I bleed red. And but even still, I love baseball. I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan of the sport. There's individual players and even other teams that I support from time to time, but the Cardinals are my team.
So I'm weird. I'm New Jersey born, bred. Like I've lived in
Okay.
New Jersey my whole entire life. And
So, like, are we talking Phillies? Are we talking the Mets? Are we talking Yankees? Or you're just
so
not even in the ballpark?
so my actual favorite team, and this is because I got inspired to love baseball because of a player, is the
Okay.
Arizona Diamondbacks. And it's
Randy Johnson?
100% Randy Johnson's fault. So
Yeah,
Randy Johnson's my favorite player of all time.
sure.
And so I've been a Diamondbacks fan for the past 20 years. And funny thing is, I started watching baseball May 2021 after I watched Randy Johnson strike out 20 Cincinnati Reds on ESPN. I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah.
I like this a lot. And then, boy, was I lucky.
Yeah, you got to see their one title,
And it has been all down
and it's been terrible ever since. Yeah.
because they've had their moments. They've made the playoffs a couple of times, but
Mhm.
like, dang, they're well, they could have been 35-74 today. And then they blew a 4-0 lead against the Giants. So there
Yeah,
you go.
as much as I was lightheartedly complaining about the Cardinals earlier, I am very aware of how nice I've had it, and that I am a Cardinals fan, and we've been perpetually either in the playoffs or at least at minimum a playoff contender for the better part of 2 decades. We've
Well,
won
because
we have the most World Series titles in the National League. Like it's I'm lucky.
they are one of the best like baseball franchises,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And um, so my favorite player since he started in the league has been Paul Goldschmidt. And
Mhm.
when he went to St. Louis, I was so sad.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm pretty sure the Cardinals made the most lopsided trade in the history of baseball this past offseason when
Oh, for Nolan. Yeah.
you can get a team to hand you their best player and $50 million.
Yeah, it's
What?
I feel bad for Rockies fans. Their front office is completely inept, and they should all be fired. Their owner should be made to sell the team. It's a joke. The fact that they didn't trade Trevor Story at the deadline,
Yep.
I'm sorry. Like, genuinely sorry. That's just so ridiculous. And I already hear that apparently our front office is in the market to try to get Trevor Story either at waivers or when he's a free agent at the end of the year. And if we get Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado, oh my God. It just, yeah,
Oh
it's
man.
something.
The last thing I'll say about baseball is I watched some baseball today because I grew up in Haddon Township, New Jersey, 10 minutes outside of Philly.
Okay.
So I'm a kind of Phillies fan. So like
Sure.
just in general, like my whole entire family's Phillies fans, and like everybody growing up were Phillies fans. So like I still root for the Phillies, and I'm going to be seeing Diamondbacks Phillies at Citizens Bank Park at the end of the month. Um, hopefully,
Nice.
it'll actually be meaningful for one of those teams because I know it won't be for the Diamondbacks. But the Phillies today, so the Mets lost to the Marlins again, and the Phillies knocked in 4 runs in the 9th inning and almost blew it in the 9th inning, but
Oh, wow.
won and are a half game out of first place now behind the Mets. So,
Yeah.
baseball.
Baseball.
That's baseball. Now, what's a movie character you connect with on a personal level?
Even that's hard for me because I don't think there's one character that's been me.
Mhm.
And I would say all human beings are complex enough that you would never find a character that's, oh yeah, that's just 100% me. Maybe aspects of you,
Yeah.
portions. So I prepared a list of films that are portions of me.
Okay.
Mark Watney from The Martian. Uh, you might not be seeing it here in this more interview scenario, but at home with friends and family, I am very much this snide, sarcastic jerk. I can be quite devilish in my wits, and I get a rouse out of it. I think it's hilarious. But someone like my mom likes to punch me in the arm and tell me to shut up sometimes. But so that's a little bit me, or even not all aspects of this, but like Liam Neeson's character from Taken. I'm not going to go murder anyone, but I'm incredibly family oriented. I'll do anything to defend my family. They mean the world to me. Nothing else supersedes that. The closest I could find of someone that maybe was like me is from the film Cashback. I don't know if you ever saw this. It was nominated for Best Short Film, and from the 2003 Oscars, they went and made a feature-length version of it that came out in 2004 or maybe 2006. I don't remember. And the movie's a little quirky. It's usually on Netflix. So you can find it there. But it stars this character named Ben, who is an art student. And he does a lot of portrait work, but in particular figure drawings of the female anatomy or the male anatomy sometimes, but mainly the female anatomy. So the movie, depending on how appropriately you can take the art aspect of it, does have a lot of female nudity. It's all meant to be in an artistic gaze, but there are some aspects of it that I'm sure some people would read otherwise. But with that said, I was an art student myself. I remember very distinctly going through many art classes, including many figure drawing classes. And this character even has this ability throughout the film that he can freeze time, and he can just look at people and undress them and draw them and then unfreeze time and just let things continue, because he just likes to draw people. And I just, not that I'm going to go around freezing time or just like randomly drawing people, but just his very shy demeanor sometimes, his very artistic view on the world, and how his past life experiences reflect how he sees the world today. A lot of that was relatable to me.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that, Heath. Now, in terms of my next question, do you have a particular film that you think, like, you love this film, but you think it would surprise people?
My friends know, but yeah, random people who don't know me, I have such an affinity and passion for absurdist humor, and more colloquially known as stupid comedy. I love, like, Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. That comes to mind. That came out earlier this year. That movie is so dumb. It is the epitome of stupid with two O's. It makes no logical sense on pretty much every aspect. But you know what? I love it. It came out in February. I've seen it, I think, 3 or 4 times since it came out already. I can watch it all the time. I can laugh all the time. And it's great. And just all movies of that nature. I love Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping.
Oh my God.
I love A Night at the Roxbury. Even like things like You Don't Mess with the Zohan. I don't care. I love when when a movie knows exactly what it is, and the director and cast are so on board that they're just, yeah, we're going to just throw anything against the wall and see what sticks and just have fun. And you can tell that the cast is having a good time making these movies. And I love it. I can't get enough of them. So absurdist, stupid humor, Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is terrific.
And who would have thought that would turn out to be like a Bond movie?
Yeah. It's so funny because it's a Bond movie, but it's not. It's Austin Powers, but Austin Powers is making fun of Bond movie. It's just, it's so meta in so many ways, and I can't get enough of it. I literally will sing the Seagull on the Tire, Edgar's prayer song, sometimes just like walking around the house. It's so funny.
Like, that trailer, speaking of trailers that don't give away anything, like, who would have, like, I'm watching the beginning of the movie and being like,
yeah, when I saw that trailer, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even want to see it, because there's two types of trailers, or three types of trailers. Trailer that gives away everything, which is disappointing, and that's like 85% of the trailers these days.
Yeah.
And then there's like 10% of the trailers that are like trailers don't give away anything, but it still intrigues you. And then there's the 5% of trailers that are like, this trailer gives away nothing, and it also doesn't even represent the movie. Like, if you watch the trailer for Barb and Star, it has nothing to do with the film. It's not even the right tone. Like, you would be forgiven if you thought after watching that trailer that this film's not even a comedy. But this film is an outrageous comedy that, like you said, has like a Dr. Evil kind of secret layer supervillain twist, and like it's about middle-aged women finding friendship and love, but it's also a humorous comedy with more slapstick antics than you. It's insane how poorly, but at the same time brilliantly marketed this movie was, because you could watch this movie, and even if you saw the trailer and read up about the film, you not expect 85% of the stuff that's thrown at you.
Honestly, I was hooked the first time I saw that trailer, purely because that kid on the bike was so funny. And I'm like, if this kid's in this even for like 5 minutes, it's gonna be worth it. And then, what actually turns out is ridiculous. Now, Heath, my last question for you is, what do you love most about movies?
I think the thing I love most about films is the quote that Roger Ebert made famous, which is, films are a machine, maybe the greatest machine humans have ever made for developing empathy. I love seeing things from someone else's perspective. I love learning the trials and tribulations that other people have gone through. I think that's incredibly important. I think it's incredibly powerful. Frankly, I think more people should go into film looking for those type of experiences. And that's not to say that there's nothing wrong with comic book films or stupid comedies. We've literally tonight applauded, Batman movies, and just got done talking about Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. So like, I love those films too, but there are pictures that can mold you and shape you to become a better person because you understand the life of someone else just even a fraction bit better. That it can, that kind of power, that level of empathy is something wholly unique to film and to movies in general that I've never experienced. And I would, unless you see something with your own eyes, like tragedy or real heartache in the world, like you can't experience things like you can with film. And that level of empathy is something that I truly appreciate and love about film. Every day I am thankful that I can experience films that show me something new and deliver that level of emotion.
Awesome. And that's something special. And you're right. Film is very unique form of art and can do so much. Now, Heath, how I like to wrap up the show is I let my guest ask me a question. Okay. So what question would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
I wasn't prepared.
That's why this is called the wild card.
Sure. All right. I guess my question would be, what is the kind of film that you think we are missing? What I mean by that is, like, recently for me, I watched Jungle Cruise. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that because I felt that was a return to classic action adventures that, frankly, I don't think Hollywood's delivered much on lately, because Hollywood, in particular, a couple studios, have shifted their focus to superhero films.
Yeah.
They've taken that space, that allotment of budgetary funds to make new movies and to be marketed and plastered in front of our eyes. We get superhero movies. And again, I love me some superhero movies. but I still really appreciated this Indiana Jones, the Mummy-esque feel, this Pirates of the Caribbean feel in Jungle Cruise. And may not be the world's greatest film, but dang it, did I have fun. I enjoyed myself. I had a great time. So what's a movie, maybe a genre, or maybe something you'd even like to see from a specific director or cast that you feel our industry is lacking? Where could we get something new, or return to something that we used to have that we don't anymore? What do you think the industry is missing?
I think a couple of thoughts. My first one is like the middle class of movies, because it's like either this movie was made for $5 or you need to dump $200 million into this movie or it's not going to sell. And I feel like that's just completely missing, because you miss out on so many, like, why can't there just be more like 30-40 million dollar budgeted movies? And like something like even like the Joker, which is still a comic book movie, was $45 million and still made $1 billion.
Yeah.
And like stuff like The Conjuring, which is like, most horror movies are like made for what, like
made on the cheap,
$2 to $10 million,
2 to 10, 15 million.
And like this is like, they put money into this horror movie and it paid off. Like those movies, at least the first two, made a lot of money, and they had a certain level of production value to them. And like most horror movies you watch, I'm like, could tell this is done on the cheap. Yeah. And even something like The Green Knight that just came out was like
amazing.
Yes. You should all go see it.
You said The Father was your favorite. The Green Knight is my favorite movie of this year so far. Everyone, it's a unique movie.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you off, Shane, but it's a unique movie. And if you want something different, if you want something that's really going to challenge you and is really going to show and not tell and make you come to your own conclusions, The Green Knight is a freaking masterpiece, and I love it. Continue.
Yeah, so I've seen like 400 and I don't know, I think 40 films this year. Green Knight's my number 3. So it's up there. And that was $22 million budget. And I don't even understand how they made that movie for that little money.
I don't either.
First off. But like, there's something missing there, because like even that's like a huge budget for an A24 film. Yeah. So there's something there that it's just like, that's just not there anymore. And even like a modest comic book movie like Logan, which was made for like $85-90 million, because they wanted to make it rated R and they were willing to cut down the budget a bit, and like Hugh Jackman gave up money to make that movie.
As we speak, Suicide Squad has gone live on HBO Max. I'm prepared to watch it as soon as I'm done talking to you. I imagine that's going to be much the same. Another R-rated superhero movie that I'm sure they probably dumped $120 million into.
And it looks bonkers.
Yes, like, it does.
Out of here. Yeah. So that's one thought. I'm a huge fan of Westerns, and I feel like that whole, like, unless you're Taylor Sheridan making like neo-westerns, or the Coen brothers occasionally making like an actual Western or neo-Western, you just don't get that anymore. Yeah. And
I actually really appreciated News of the World last year for that very reason.
Yes. That was a wonderful film. And Paul Greengrass, Tom Hanks.
I was shocked that got pushed out more at the Oscars. I thought that would get more recognition just for being that again.
But like, I loved that movie. And basically you could count on like one hand the big Westerns, that like actual period Westerns that have come out in the past like 10 years. Yeah. Like you had True Grit in 2010 and not a whole lot else. Yeah. And I love Westerns and I miss them, but I'm just going to have to keep watching my Clint Eastwood movies.
Over and over.
Over and over again. But then I had one other thought. Oh, one other thing too, that this upsets me. And this is hard for certain filmmakers, because like you have certain filmmakers, like Taika Waititi is a perfect example. Okay. I love Thor Ragnarok. Love it. And I cannot wait for Thor: Love and Thunder. And like, I love the idea of him doing a Star Wars movie. I think it's going to be really cool. But then you have to trade off, and you don't get things like What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People. It's like,
and Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, you have a director that has such a unique and interesting voice and can make these films that you don't usually get to see, like Chloe Zhao. I love The Rider and I love Nomadland. She's doing The Eternals, and I'm really hoping that's a great film, but like, there's
What's
enough.
next?
Well, and even like I was about to say, you have the John Favreau's of the world, but he even started as like the 90s indie scene with like like Rounders. Was that his?
No, he did Swingers. Is what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
But even before that, he was in Rudy. I mean,
Yeah.
So I mean, he's
So like,
to where he is now, it's very different.
Well, and like right now, John Favreau's like, I make big things.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make all these Disney movies, all these Star Wars things. But like, sometimes I just wish that like you would have like an indie director and they would stay in their indie area and be able to make those movies without like,
I agree to an extent, because I don't want to say stay and make those, because that very closely rides the edge of stay in your lane, which is inadvertently rude and condescending. But what I would say is try to strike a balance. And again, I'm going to go back to Nolan. Use the Nolan model. Whatever he worked out with Warner Brothers was perfect. I'm going to do a Batman movie for you, Warner, and then I'm making The Prestige for me. I'll do The Dark Knight for you. I'm making Inception for me. I'll do The Dark Knight Rises for you. I'm doing Interstellar for me. And I would love to see that. Now, that was Warner Brothers, who owns DC Comics. I have no idea what the structures and the contracts are like. A lot of the directors you mentioned are doing Marvel, which is Disney, and that's a different thing. But like, I think of someone like James Gunn, who, came up and did Super and Slither, and he hasn't done a non-comic book thing in like a decade.
Yeah.
He did Guardians 2, or he did Guardians 2. Now he's doing the Suicide Squad, then he's going back to do Guardians 3. Like, or I think of Taika Waititi, like you mentioned, he did all these great original IPs, bringing us unique stories. And again, I agree. I love Ragnarok, but he did Thor Ragnarok. Now he's doing Thor: Love and Thunder. And I just wonder, like, can someone but again, Jojo Rabbit came out after Ragnarok. So, I hope someone can be like, all right, Taika, you did Ragnarok, then you did Jojo. Now you're doing Love and Thunder. You go make something else for you and then come back. Like, I would love to see that. Let people bring clearly these artistic talents and voices to our superhero blockbusters so that we can make them better, but also let them still be their own unique voice and tell their own original stories.
Well, and I can't blame them, because who's going to say no to that?
I'm sure the paycheck's real good.
Yeah. But it's like, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because it seemed like Warner Brothers was that place.
Mm-hmm.
And then they pissed off everybody.
Yeah.
Because like, they're very much a filmmaker's place. Because like, you had Nolan, and like Nolan made Warner Brothers pictures.
Yes.
Clint Eastwood makes Warner Brothers pictures, and they're going to keep bankrolling his movies because, one, they get done early, two, they're under budget, and they can always count on Clint to do his thing. Speaking of which, Cry Macho's trailer came out today.
I did not see it.
And he's 91 years old, still directing and still starring in his own movies.
It's crazy to me.
And I think he's going to die before he actually stops actually.
I don't think he will ever willingly quit. I think he will just keep going as long as he can.
And good for him. But and so like, I hope there's some balance there, because, and it kind of loops back around to my first point, because like, there's no middle ground anymore, it feels like. But that's the evolution of film, and I'll still keep watching the $200 million movies and the movies that were made for $5. So there we go. But I appreciate your question. That was a good one. But those are all of our questions here on Lost in the Wasteland. But Heath, I'm going to let you shamelessly plug quickly whatever you'd like to plug before we wrap up, and then we're going to
Sure.
wrap things up.
Again, same as I said at the beginning, you can find me on Letterboxd, the One Heath Bar, all one word, lowercase, or just search Heath Lynch. You should be able to find me if you want to see more thoughts or reviews.
And you should go check it out. But Heath, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me.
Thank all of you out there for always supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.